This video, I'm going to show you how I made my latest collection called Check Me Out. It's a beautiful retro mod pattern in quite an unusual color palette. If you're new to clay, this design may look a bit complicated, but actually it's really simple to make. Well, hello gorgeous. How the heck are you? Doing okay? I'm going to jump right in today. I'm starting out with Primo Orange, and I'm going to put it in my extruder using this rectangular disc. I've got my extruder cleaned out, ready to go. Got my clay nice and warm. You always want your clay really soft when you're putting it through your extruder. Well, right now it's winter time. I don't like to keep my house like really warm because I don't know, I can't stand it. So what I do is once I get this clay into the barrel of my extruder, I take it and keep it warm. Usually put it somewhere on my body. Full disclosure, that is usually in my bra. But you know, you can sit on it, or you know, put it next to your belly or whatever, just anywhere that's warm. And then that way I heat the whole barrel up and the clay also at the same time, and it makes it so much easier to extrude it, especially if you are using a hand crank extruder. Now mine has a drill adapter, so it's not that hard. Still, there's no sense in putting more stress on there than you need to. You're really going to want to make sure that that clay is nice and warm. Just makes everything a whole lot easier. I'm sure you saw there that my extruder was spinning in my hand. That was my fault. I had just put lotion on my hands, so it was spinning around. If you ever have that problem, just do like I did. Grab you a rag or like a silicone paw holder or something, and that will help you be able to grip onto it. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to spread it out, make sure it's straight, and let it cool off because it's really warm right now. I'm just going to spread it out straight, smooth, flat, and let it cool off while I extrude some more. Now that I've got this all extruded, first off I'm going to cut off these ends. Like this end is really thin, so I'm going to cut it off. This end is always curved and it's hard to straighten it out, so I'm going to cut those off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these at 6 inches in length. I ran one of these scraps through the pasta machine to see how much it was going to stretch out once I got it on the thickness that I wanted it. And it's going to double in size, maybe a little bit more. So I figured out for what I want, I'm going to cut them in 6-inch lengths. After I get them cut at 6 inches, then I will take what I have left over that I've cut off, because I mean not all of these are going to cut right at 6 inches. So I'm going to take the leftovers, put it with these, run it back through again, and I'll keep doing that until I run out of clay. I've got all of my strips ready, got them cut. I figured out the width that I wanted my strips. I'm going to put 2 strips. When you're starting out, you've got to get this first strip straight. It doesn't matter if you're using the rectangular like what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if you're using a string to make your stripes. Doesn't matter. You've got to get these first ones nice and straight, and then all of the others will kind of follow suit. If you put this one crooked or like with a bend in it or something, then all of the others are going to be that way too. When you butt the others up next to it, if it's got a swerve or something like that in it, it's gonna, all of the rest of them will too. I don't know exactly how many stripes I'm gonna need because I can't get it wider than my pasta machine, because I am gonna put this through the pasta machine to get it the thickness I wanted. If you were okay with the thickness that these are now, then it wouldn't have to go in the pasta machine. But I want mine much thinner than this. I'm just going to keep going here. There's not a whole lot more to tell you. Can't fit this other stripe, and it fit through my pasta machine. I wanted it to be the same width as my pasta machine, because if it was narrower than the pasta machine, it's going to spread as it goes through. From here, I'm going to burnish this down to get these connected so that they won't come apart when I go to pick it up. A piece of parchment paper here. You can use parchment paper for this. You can use wax paper. You can use printer paper, whatever you want to use. So when you're burnishing something that has stripes like this, you don't want to go around in circles or back and forth this way. It's going to shift your lines. So you want to go in the direction of your lines. This is something that I like to use. It's a stainless steel soapstone. I will leave this for you in the description box. Now you might can see, oh, I want to use my new doohickey that I got. This is a little remote for my camera, so then I don't have to touch it and make it wobble. I'm excited about that. So you might can see here, see how this is a darker color here? That is because the paper is in contact with that. And you can see how this line here, where they go together, is not in contact. I've got to get this to where the whole thing, you can see that it's in contact. And this is probably going to take a while. I've just got to make sure that everything is attached. See, can you see that those are getting closer and closer to being closed up? You can also feel with your fingers. If you're trying to feel something like that with your fingers, especially once it gets closer to being burnished together, a good way to feel things like that, or when you're sanding and you want to feel if something is smooth, close your eyes. If you close your eyes, you can feel more things like that with your fingers. I don't know why, but that does work. Now I'm finished burnishing. It's still not like super smooth, but that's fine because the pasta machine will take care of that. You might can see that can't see any more of those light colored spaces now. So I'm pretty sure that it is stuck together well enough that it won't come apart as I'm pulling it off of the tile, and that it won't come apart in the pasta machine. I still got a little bit Can you see there those lines? So I've still got a little bit that is not attached, and that's where it's going to want to come apart the most, at the ends. So I've got to work a little bit more on these places, get those attached together. Now it's time to lift this up off of this towel so that I can get it in the pasta machine. It's not going to be easy to get this up because I burnished and burnished so much that this is going to be really, really attached to the towel. So I'm going to get a very thin, very flexible blade. It's probably the thinnest blade that I have. I want it well lubricated, so I'm using some Armor All because I don't want the clay to stick to the blade. And a lot of times if you have a small piece, you can just go real fast and pick it up. I'm not going to do that with this. I'm going to go real slow, a little bit at a time, until I get it all up. Now, I don't know if you could see that or not, but the clay was sticking to my blade there. So I'm going to go over it again with the Armor All. Every time it starts sticking, I'm going to re-lubricate it. Because, and see, I just sliced into that. I was just about to say that if you're not careful, when something is attached this tightly to the towel and you're trying to pick it up, if you're not careful, you can really, really mess up your sheet here. Trust me. Okay, I think I'm gonna wipe it again. We're getting there, we're getting there. See here, this is where it's wanting to come apart. Like I talked about, there on the ends is going to be where it's most likely to come apart. This one is trying to come apart down here too. I think I can go ahead and finish this off. There we go. So I can get it through the pasta machine. Now I'm going to start out on my thickest setting. Since this is coming apart here, this is coming apart a little bit on this end, but not as bad as this one. So I'm going to start on this end, running this end through the pasta machine first. I'm going to run this through the pasta machine, starting with the thickest, and then I'm going to go down to a 4 because that's the setting that I want it on. Okay, after making the first pass through the pasta machine, I can see that this is not going to stay together. So I'm going to have to burnish this little section again, a little piece of this, and make sure that that is attached. An easy fix. Alright, that's better. If I had just kept going and just left it, it was only going to get worse. Okay, I got me a nice long sheet here. Can see this end is bowed and it's kind of spread out just a little bit. The stripes are kind of curved here at the end. You're probably going to have one end that does this, and so I'm going to cut that off. The reason that happened is because my sheet wasn't quite wide enough that it took up the entire rollers on my pasta machine. I think because I am doing a checkerboard, I want this very, very straight, and I need all of this to be even. So I think I'm just going to cut all of this off right here. I switched to this instead of my ruler so I could kind of see to make sure I'm getting past the distortion, but I'm using this as a straight edge to make sure I get, what's the word, perpendicular to the lines. I wish I had a square, one of those squares, but I don't have one, so I'm just using this. I'm just going to take a craft knife, cut this off. That is a lot that I'm cutting off, but I don't know. I would rather do that and not use this section than to have this distortion, because when I go to do my checkerboard, that's never going to line up. I think if I turn it this way, I will be able to see better if it's straight. I think that's pretty good. Even if I don't cut off a lot on this end, I've still got to cut here to get this corner off and, you know, get a nice straight edge. I'm sorry I had to mute this section because I forgot to turn my music off in the background. So here I'm talking about the bubbles. I have lots of tiny little bubbles in here. I don't know if maybe they were from the extruder. I don't know how I got so many bubbles in there. But either way, I'm taking this tiny little needle tool that's like the smallest one I have. I'm going to pierce the bubble right there and then push the air out. And I'm going to do that to as many of those as I can. I've got out as many bubbles as I can. I didn't get them all out because there's like a million teeny tiny ones. I don't think they'll show because I'm planning on using a texture. Now these stripes, obviously not the half one, but the full stripes are 22 millimeters. I'm going to make a checkerboard, so I've got to mark them and cut them this way at 22 millimeters. Say hi to Trixie. But what I'm going to do is take my ruler, I'm going to lay it next to my pieces and mark it 22 millimeters. I will do that on both sides of my clay so I know where to cut. I'm just going to use my little needle tool here that I was already using because it's something very tiny, and I'm just going to make a little nick there right on the ends at my 22 millimeter mark. This is going to be very, very hard to show you because I don't have a whole lot of room here to get everything where I can show you, but I'm going to try. So what I'm going to do is take and cut this piece here on my marks very carefully. I'm trying very hard to make sure I'm getting it right on my mark, and then once I cut, I'm gonna pull, and hopefully that is gonna stick. Yes, it did. And then I'm gonna attach it here on my tile. See? Now, I know you didn't see how I got that off of my blade, so I'm going to show you in the next one. Before moving forward, I'm going to get this nice and straight, even. So just like before, when I was laying the stripes, I needed a nice straight edge because all the rest would follow that. Same here. Need it nice and straight. I'm going to go ahead and attach it down to my tile. Try to get as many of the air bubbles out as I can. Alright, let's try the next one. And I'm doing this from very far away, so it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing. We'll try. And I just realized I should have put this at the bottom, so I'm going to swap this around. I turned this around because I actually needed the clay at the bottom of the tile, not at the top. Alright, so I've got those two strips on, got them attached to the tile. So I'm going to take the next one, and then I'm going to offset it from this one. I'm trying very hard to make sure that my squares line up because, well, I'm a perfectionist. Okay, and these you can probably see are not lining up. So I'm just going to go ahead and take them off of my blade. Now, if it didn't bother you, you could go ahead and just lay them down while it was still attached to the blade, and it would make things a little bit easier. But My perfectionist brain will not let me do that. So what I'm doing is I'm just lining it up and then pressing it down a little bit, and then I'm going to have some excess clay there. Now see, this one doesn't go far enough, so I'm going to stretch that one just a little bit. I actually think that square's a little bit big, but it's okay. And now I've got this, see that big bubble there to deal with? That's okay. I'm just going to gently push that out and just kind of go slow and make the clay do what I want it to. Always remember, you are in charge of your clay, not the other way around. So this one is a little bit wonky. I'm going to line it up really well. And then I'm going to continue with my checkerboard pattern until I get this whole sheet in a checkerboard. I've already done this to the rest of the ends. They were all sticking out like this, right? So what I'm doing is cutting it off here. And then I'm going to move it over to this side, which will give me a little bit more area to use. Now, if this had not been a half of a piece, then see, this whole thing would line up if this had been a full orange square. But since it was only half a square, I'm still moving it, but then I'm just going to cut it off right there. And just kind of slot them in there. I'm going to go through and cut off this excess where the orange ends here. I know this is a very big slab, but the way these are going to be made, I want to be able to cut out very specific places. In any other slab, I would just make it and cut out as many pieces as I could, just randomly, just, you know, fit as many as I could together. But with a pattern like this, I personally want to line it up where I want it a little bit more. That's one reason I made such a big slab. I almost wish I had made it a little bit bigger, but this will be good because this is kind of an odd color combination. So, you know, these may not be that popular. I don't know. But anyway, that's beside the point. I'm going to cut these off and then move on to the next steps. I'm going to go ahead and remove some of these bubbles. The bubbles that are between the tile and the clay. And they're going to be pretty big bubbles. You can probably see them as the light shifts. Just like I did with the bubbles that were in the clay, I'm just going to pierce them, push the air out. It's that simple. And I've got a lot of them to do, so I'm going to go through and do those. I want to make sure that this clay is as attached to the tile as possible because I'm going to bake on this tile. And if you cut and bake your pieces and they're not attached well enough to the tile, you're going to have a bubble. You'll have a bubble, a big bubble on the front and a big dip on the, like a big crater on the back. So I want to get out all of these big bubbles. Got all my bubbles out. As I did before, I've got to get all this nice and smooth. I can feel the bumps, and I've got to make this clay one piece. I said before that with stripes you want to go in one direction. Well, that still applies, but you want to go, you can go this way and this way. You just don't want to go, you know, this way or around. And with something like this, to keep the stripes or the squares, whatever, from smearing, I'm going to go slow. And I'm trying to, instead of like going this direction right here in the middle, I'm going to try to go this direction on the line. And then go to this line. Maybe go a couple of times and then go in the cross direction. And I will just keep doing that until I get it all nice and smooth and all attached together as one piece. I have my slab all nice and smooth. I am confident that all of the clay is attached together. If you've watched my videos before, you probably know that I am a fan of using like a stippled texture, and I do that a lot, and I'm gonna do that with this one too. I generally have 3 different ways that I do that. My big nail brush, I have 2 different body brushes. One of them is softer than the other. They come in a set together. The nail brush and the body brushes I got from Amazon. I'll leave you a link for those. The other thing I like to use is the sandpaper texture rollers. Have 3 different ones of these. These come from Play. I have an affiliate link in the description box for those. I'm going to use this brush. It's really soft. This is my softest one. I will just take it and pounce all over and over. This will take a little while until I get it sufficiently textured. Now, how heavy or light the texture is can also depend on like how hard you hit, but I want a very, very light texture for this. Okay, I have my big checkerboard sheet textured now, so I'm going to move on to my next step, which is to cut out my little flowers. I have this sheet here, which is, I'm going to put this on probably a number 6. I tried to get it really thin. I textured it with that same body brush. I forgot to clean the body brush in between, so this actually has tiny little speckles of orange on it, which I actually don't mind. I think it's kind of cute. I'm going to cut out my flowers. I'm going to cut out with a 6-petal donut daisy. See these little tabs on the end of this? This will fit into this handle from Play. Have an affiliate link for you. I probably already mentioned that. Here's just a few of some of the others that you can get with this to go in the handle or to use with the handle. And then this just slots right in there. And then I'm going to cut out this whole sheet full of flowers and go from there. Now that first one, I didn't put enough pressure on, I think because I was trying to hold it. But if you do it from the top, like that, you can get enough pressure on it. I should have gone in the other direction though, because I can't see. but anyway, that doesn't matter. So, like I said, I'm just going to fill this sheet up. I was going to clean these while they're on the tile. No matter what cutter you use, even a sharp one, like that's a good cutter, it's sharp, but you're still gonna have a little cleanup around the edges. Got my checkerboard slab out. I'm just gonna take up a flower. Scoop me up a little flower here. Oh, sorry about all of that. It was noisy, wasn't it? And see what I mean? Like, I'm still gonna have cleanup to do around those edges there. I've got the stiffest, what do you call this? Silicone tool that I have. I just got out the stiff one, and then I'm just gonna tuck those little edges in. I think that just kind of pressing it toward the back works better than scraping it or rubbing it, you know. I think it works better to just press it in like that. Alright, I think that's probably good enough. Nope. It is not. Sometimes it's easier to do it from the back too. Okay, I think that's good enough. I am trying to decide if I want all the daisies facing in the same direction, or do I just want to put them on there randomly? I'm not sure. Knowing me, probably having them all in the same direction will be better, but then again, if I don't get them like perfectly in the same direction, that might bother me. I don't know where this glitter came from. Good grief, I'm covered in it. I had to clean my hands before I do anything else. I honestly do not know where that glitter came from. But I don't know, like if I do it and they're not all perfectly the same, that's going to irritate me. But I don't know if it's better to just do them randomly. It's probably better to have them all facing in the same direction. So I'm just going to gently lay it on there. Make sure it's centered as best as I can. And try to get it in the same direction. Gently press it down. And what I'm going to do to kind of soften the edges of the flowers is I'm going to go back over with my little brush here, which I will probably wait until I get them all on there to do that. But just gently go back over. Since these are the same texture, that works well. And then that just kind of softens up the edges. What I might could do is soften them up with my finger just a little bit before I use the brush. But yeah, I'm just gonna fill this up. While you're watching me go through this, I just want to say, if you enjoy my videos, if you're learning something, you enjoy my content, it is so greatly appreciated if you would help support the channel by donating to my PayPal. As of right now, I do not qualify to make money from YouTube, so all of the work that I do for my videos is free. And yes, while I would be making this jewelry anyway, setting up the camera, stopping to explain what I'm doing takes a lot of time. Plus the editing takes forever. So if you would like to help me continue to make videos, I'll leave a link to my PayPal in the description box and in the pinned comment. After doing several of these, I have decided that it is easier to clean the flowers up on the tile than to do it in my hands. And then I still have a little bit to do with my fingers, but not much. But what I'm doing is just taking a little craft blade and just go around and scrape off the excess. There's still a little bit to do once I get it in my hands, but not as much. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that this clay, I did leach it to make it really firm so that it's easier to do this stuff with, and the flowers aren't just you know, getting all mushed in my fingers. And I just wanted this clay firm for this. Something else, I'm just laying the flowers on here for right now. I'm not pressing them in. Once I get them all done, I'll just turn the tile in the opposite direction so I can check them and make sure they're centered and facing the right direction, looking at it from another angle. Just looking at it from the same angle, it may look different than if I twist, you know, rotate it around and look from a different angle. I've got all of my flowers placed. All of them are pressed in except for these last two rows here. I just finished those up. I made sure I checked from all four sides to make sure it was straight, or as straight as I could get it, evenly spaced and all that nice stuff. So I'm going to take a piece of waxed patty paper and press them in, gently rub over them to kind of soften those edges just a little bit. I don't want to press them all the way in. I want this to be a 3D design, but I do want to soften those cut edges just a little. And then I'm gonna take my brush that I used to texture these, and I'm just gonna gently go back over the whole slab just to make sure I didn't mess up the texture on those flowers. I'm not gonna press really hard. I'm just gonna lightly go over. I am really debating on if I should put some little lines in here and define the petals, or I don't know. I almost think like with this retro mod pattern, I would be better off to just leave them plain, like flat. But I'm gonna take my little needle tool here. I'm just gonna test this one. Since it's on the edge, it's not gonna be a big deal. So I'm just gonna test it out. And decide if I want to put some details in here. I could do just the petals like that on the outside. I'll pick it up and see if I like it. It's not bad. I mean, I kind of like it better with a little bit of detail, but I don't know. I'm not sure with this style and this type of pattern if it doesn't work better without it. How about just putting one line in the center of each one? No, I like this better. I like this better than the plain flowers. So I'm gonna do that to all of them. Took a little line from the outside. When you're doing this, you gotta make sure you're pointing toward the center, or it can look really weird really quick if these lines aren't pointed toward the center. And then one in the center of each flower petal. Yeah, I like this. I like that much better. And it doesn't matter if my needle messes up the center here, because I'm gonna add a center to the flowers. I am trying not to mess up around the petal on the background, but here in the center it doesn't matter. So yeah, this is gonna take a while now. I want to say it took me at least 3 hours probably to cut out and place all of these petals. So that was a bit time consuming. And I could have just left it. Now I'm adding more to my time. But I still think this gives it just that little bit of extra oomph. I always like a little extra oomph. Alright, so this is gonna take a while. I'm gonna get this done. One thing I forgot to mention when you're doing something like this that can really be beneficial and save a little bit of time, but more importantly it can keep things more even, is to do the same movement on each flower. Instead of doing one whole flower and having to rearrange my hand position, I'll just go through and do this one mark on each flower. And once I get all the way through, then I'll start on the next mark and just keep doing it that way until I get all of my little details done. It's just making it go a little quicker, and it's easier, and it keeps things more even because you're keeping that consistent hand placement, and you don't have to keep moving. So yeah, just thought I'd throw that tip in. I've got all of my marks done and my lovely little flowers. I mentioned before that it didn't matter about the centers because I'm going to replace those. So what I did is took some leftovers where I cut the striped sheet off the end. I ran them through the pasta machine on the same thickness as my flowers. Although I kind of wish I had run it one setting thicker, but I'm not going to go back and redo it. I used my nail brush to very heavily texture this because I wanted it a lot more textured than the flowers. So now what I'm going to do is take this tiny little cutter. I found a cutter that would fit right inside the donuts in my flowers. So I'm going to cut a whole bunch of circles out and get ready to put them in the centers. I've got all my circles cut out, and I've already started placing them in. Actually, I've got most of them in already. There you can see the difference with and without the different colored circles. I'm putting them in opposite from the square. I think that gives it just a little something extra. I like it with the different colored circles. Now that's just an extra step, so if you were doing this and you didn't want the centers a different color, you could just clean up your insides and just leave it like that. I've already got them all out and ready to go. You figure out which row I'm on. This one right here. So one thing I've been doing to keep my place, because it gets really confusing really quickly with these different colors and the pattern, it's easy to miss one or forget where you're at. So once I just slot that in there, I'm sorry, you couldn't even see what I was doing. Just put it in there and then press it in just a little, but I leave my finger on that one so I know where I'm at and I don't lose my space. And then once I get them all in, to make sure that these are pressed in well, because I'm just sitting them in there and like just barely pressing them in at this point. I could take my needle tool and like do each one individually, like add more texture, but I don't really want to do that. That would take even longer. So what I'm going to do is go back over with my brush, pounce on it again. Just doing it a little bit is not going to mess up this heavier texture in the centers. It'll just be just enough to keep it, to help put it in place. Okay, so I'm almost finished with that, and then I'll be ready to cut out my shapes. Now I'm ready to cut out my pieces. I've kind of tested some different cutters. Anytime you want to test how a cutter is going to look with a certain pattern, you can just kind of hover over and see what you see, or I mean, you can't even lay it down on there. It's usually not going to hurt your pattern any. For me, for some reason, I just mostly see like a big circle earring with this retro mod kind of pattern, but I have never ever made multiples of one design in a collection, and I'm not going to start now. So I may make like different sizes of circles, but they'll all be different. I also think maybe the donut daisy might look good. I'm gonna try that. And the only other shape I could think of that would work with this is my trapezoid. I only wanted basic shapes. These were the only basic shapes that I could come up with, that I really liked. This is going to be hard to do sitting down. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to have to go up because I don't have enough room there. I'm going to try to center that as best as I can. If this one has the fuchsia colored square in the center, then I want an orange colored square in the center for its mate. That's what I was saying earlier about I really wish I had made the slab bigger, because I'm gonna have to be very strategic about where I cut my pieces from, and I can't just, you know, like lay one here, and you know, I'm gonna have to be more strategic about where I put them. I mean, I could do it that way. I don't know, it actually looks kind of cute like that, but I think I'm probably gonna really decide where I want mine before I place, you know, to place them where I want them. I'm gonna cut one with you here, and then I'll have to cut the rest off camera so that I can see what I'm doing. Now, like right here, I don't know if you can tell or not, but a line would be in the center there. Like this would be the center, which is not really what I want. I would rather have a flower in the center. So I'm going to line that up the best that I can. Looking at this flower and making sure it's even with this one. Making sure this one is in the same spot as this one. You know, just really, really trying to line it up. And this can take a while to get it just right. But then again, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so it's going to take me probably longer than it would most people. And then I'm just going to cut. And hope I did a good job lining it up. Not too bad. So then its mate, I'm going to put an orange one in the center. So we'll just go right here, right below it. I'm looking at it from lots of different directions. As you might can tell, my voice is probably moving around, but I'm looking at it from as many different directions as I can to make sure I've got it where I want it. The circles are going to be a little bit easier than the other shapes, which is why I'm choosing to do these on camera, because the other shapes I will have to be able to really, really see what I'm doing and probably pick it up and move around and things like that. Alright, so that's what I got. And then I'm going to cut out the rest of the sheet. I'm going to try to get as many of these as I can. And I will cut out little toppers and things like that, and probably some stud earrings, but I'm not going to worry so much about those. Now the toppers that go with the earrings I will, but the studs I'm not going to really cut those out strategically, just wherever I can get them. I think with these though, I'm pretty sure I want the toppers with the pattern. A lot of times I'll do like a solid color with the topper or post, whatever you want to call it. Usually I do a different color, or like a solid color if the earring is a pattern. But with these, I don't know. I kind of think I want the same pattern for both. I'll have to think about that. I have the Check Me Out collection all finished up now. I did decide to stick with the circles and the trapezoids in lots of different sizes, but I did do the one pair of the daisies, and honestly I wish I had made more of those. I really like the daisies. I think they came out really cute, and I wish I had made more of those in different sizes, but that's the only one. This one I decide to flip and set on the diagonal. For the most part, I think the rest of them are set in this orientation. I made some little danglies with the cute little circles. I made lots of cute little hoops. I really like these that just have the single flower. And I did decide to use the solid colors for the accent pieces, for the toppers. I started out with, you know, seeing it if I liked it like that, but I decided ultimately I liked it better with the solid color. And then I did opposite colors for the toppers, and then the backs are also opposite colors, which I think is a nice cute little touch. If you are intending to sell your jewelry, you're gonna have to make your pieces stand out. You need to develop your own style, which will happen over the years as you continue working. Don't make the same thing everyone else is making. You've got to come up with something different. Give your customers something different that they can't get anywhere else. And that is going to come down to your style, your quality, and just the finishing touches. And I like to think that little things like this, like making the backs in different colors, the toppers in opposite colors, I have my signature in the same color as the flowers. I just think those little touches like that make a big difference and can set your jewelry apart from someone else's. So I guess that's it for this video. If you would like to see more tutorials, check out this little playlist here. And if you like experiments, tips and tricks, that sort of thing, check out this video here. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Okay, thanks. Bye.